If you are working with the road cleaning program or receiving temporary financial assistance under the Volcanic Eruption Emergency Project, here's how you can withdraw money from the ATM using your bank card.
Insert your card into the machine. Enter your PIN. On the home screen, select Withdraw. Then select Check-in Balance. Enter the amount you would like to withdraw. It must be a whole dollar amount and multiples of 20. For example, 20, 40, 60, etc. Ensure you enter the right amount, then select Correct. If you would like a receipt for the transaction, click Yes. Take your card, cash, and your receipt.
This message was brought to you by the Ministry of Finance, Economic Planning and Information Technology and the World Bank.
Good evening and welcome to this week's edition of Roundtable Talk. As you may know, the school year commences officially on September 5. That will be in another few days or so, next Monday. And to talk about that and more on what's happening in the education sector, we have as our guests this evening the Minister of Education, Mr. Curtis King, and his Permanent Secretary, Michael Burke. Welcome, gentlemen, to the program. School is set to begin. Are we ready?
Well, generally speaking, I would say yes, we are ready. Obviously, every year when this time comes around, we always have to do some level of preparation to ensure that the schools are in a state of readiness to accommodate schooling. This year, as I explained earlier, we are coming out of a very difficult 2-year period where first we had the pandemic and then we had the eruption of the La Soufrière volcano. And basically our schools, most of them in what was referred to as the safe zone, safe zones, were used as shelters. Persons will recall that roughly about a fifth of our population had to be relocated to the safe zones away from the volcanic eruption. The shelters that were used were basically the schools. And what happened, because the schools were occupied for a fairly long period of time with persons in these shelters, it meant that the wear and tear of these facilities was sufficient to, if you like, result in the need for more substantive work that would have normally be done had it been a regular recommencement of school. Added to that, you will also recall, Teresa, that we are presently embarked on what we call a special program that is referred to as the School Improvement Program, where basically we are in the process of doing substantial repair on some of our secondary schools, and we are also in the process of planning and designing the reconstruction of a new secondary school in the case of the Sandy Bay Secondary School. Now, the works that are being carried out presently are being done on the St. Vincent Grammar School, and you will recall that the St. Vincent Grammar School was housed last year on the tarmac, so to the Girls High School. The two Barley primary schools these 4 schools are presently, were receiving significant repair work. Now, I say war in the case of the Barley Anglican and the Barley Government School. They are finished. The Girls High School and the St. Vincent Grammar School work as we speak. It's still being done. The St. Clair Deacon Secondary, the Beckway Anglican High School, and the Kingston Anglican School, which are also due for substantive work. So that this year, as I'm saying, it's a special year. Special because we require to do more substantive work than would have been done in the past at this time. But we are managing, and I can safely say, given all of the on-the-spot checks that we have done, given the extensive collaboration with BRAXA and the Ministry of Transport and Works, that we are in a state where we can commence school on Monday, 5th of September. Of course, we have indicated that the St. Vincent Grammar School, that will be moving back from the tarmac to their regular campus at Richmond Hill in Kingston. That school, given the volume of work that had to be undertaken, because we had to make some changes to the original scope of work, given what we saw when we went to do the repairs. And presently, the section of the facility that houses the Form 1 students, the new entrance, that building was completely removed and is being replaced with a wall structure. Although the contractors are pulling out all the stops, it is true to say that we would require perhaps the next week or so to complete the work there. So we have taken a decision that that school will be open on the 12th of September, 1 week later than the other schools. But let me repeat, the other schools, all other schools, will be open on Monday, 5th September 2022. Okay, the grammar school is the one that will be home for next week. So that will be open on September 12th.
So all schools reopen on September 5th,
Yes.
with the exception of the St. Vincent Grammar School.
Right.
What sort of time frame do you have for the schools that are currently under repair, being reconstructed, and what time frame do you have for completion of these works?
Okay. Right, in the case of the construction of a new school, we anticipate that would be perhaps another 2 to 3 years to be completed.
That's the Sandy Bay
That's the
Secondary.
Sandy Bay Secondary. But we're working with the Ministry of Finance, particularly the Ministry Economic Planning, because they have been issued the mandate to deliver this critical project. And based on conversations we've held with them, they anticipate that other schools under the project would commence 2023, early 2023.
Okay, so by 2023, everybody should be up and running and ready. What are some of the challenges that you have in preparing for this new school year?
I think we should note that what we recognize when the workmen visited the sites to do the work, we had a situation of evolving scope. So as they got there, they recognized that there were more damage to the school than anticipated, so the scope had to be revised. By way of challenges, I can say with some level of confidence that BRAXA has an excellent team, and they're working above and beyond to deliver. What we did within the Ministry of Education, we decided to visit different locations. So yesterday we spent the day in the field on the windward side, and we recognized that there were some schools with minor issues, but the major areas of concern that is typical is the plumbing, the electrical, and Broxton pretty much has that covered. There is also some work on the structure, but everything is progressing well, and we anticipate, barring any unforeseen circumstances, that schools will be ready for September 5th, 2022.
Okay, I know that a new school is being built at Orange Hill?
Orange Hill.
So what arrangements are in place currently for those students who attend that particular school, and how are they working?
Okay, in the case of Sandy Bay Secondary, they are presently located at Mount Young, and they, this will be the second year of the occupation of that site. You would recall that, having recognized that some of these facilities require substantive work, that we built temporary facilities to house these schools. So that is why on the tarmac you have the St. Vincent Grammar School and the Girls High School. This year, the Thomas Saunders Secondary will be occupying that building that was occupied by the St. Vincent Grammar School. Now, the Girls High School will continue to occupy the facility at the tarmac, given that their work is ongoing. In the case of Sandy Bay Secondary, they will continue to occupy the Mount Young facility, because in their case, what is going to be done is a completely new secondary school, and that obviously will take time. We probably should have mentioned earlier, the Sinclair Dakin Secondary School. That school will also require substantive work, but there is presently no need to relocate the students, because the work can be done safely while they occupy there. The Beckway Anglican High School, we also built temporary facilities to house that school, because again, the work to be done on the Beckway Secondary School is going to be substantive. There's another school, not under the CDB funded project, but the Mary Hutchinson Primary School in Union Island. Again, for some time, it was recognized that that building, although it was a relatively new building, I think that school was opened in 1992, around there, but that building requires substantive work. In fact,
inoperable.
That's right.
Yeah.
In fact, what we are going to do there is to rebuild a school for Mary Hutchinson. So it's a new school that will be built. Presently, the Mary Hutchinson School is housed in the Learning Resource Center in Union Island. We were hoping to have this school relocated in a temporary facility. Actually, we have commenced that temporary facility, but we'll not be able to finish it to accommodate them come September 5th. And so we are asking the teachers, the parents, students, all stakeholders in respect to that school to be a little more patient with us, or to continue to be a little more patient with us, because we recognize that the space that they occupy now is not the best in terms of the number of students. And of course, that facility was not built to accommodate a school, and as such, it is a challenge. But we are assured that we will have that temporary facility up and running during this school year upcoming, and hence the students will be able to move into that temporary building.
Okay, we'll take our first break and we'll pick up from where we left off. PS. Back in just a moment.
If you are working with the road cleaning program or receiving temporary financial assistance under the volcanic eruption emergency project, here's how you can withdraw money from the ATM using your bank card.
Insert your card into the machine. Enter your PIN. On the home screen, select Withdraw. Then select Check-in Balance. Enter the amount you would like to withdraw. It must be a whole dollar amount and multiples of 20. For example, 20, 40, 60, etc. Ensure you enter the right amount, then select Correct. If you would like a receipt for the transaction, click Yes. Take your card, cash, and your receipt.
This message was brought to you by the Ministry of Finance, Economic Planning and Information Technology and the World Bank.
Welcome back. PS, when we took that first break, you were about to make a point, I think probably in support of what the Minister was saying.
Yeah, just to say that we at the Ministry of Education, we don't define readiness in absolute idealistic way. We consider readiness to be a school environment where learning can occur. And you asked Ollie about the arrangement for the Sanbibi Secondary School, and I must say that although the facility is temporary by definition, by occupation, it's temporary permanent because it's not a ply structure, it's actually a wall structure.
Yes.
And we anticipate that we'll have difficulties getting the persons out of that facility because they are indeed enjoying the facility. Other things that we are doing as well too, we're working with the Ministry of Health, in particular the Environmental Health Office, and they have commenced the sanitizing of schools. And we know this for a fact that they're out there engaged in the sanitizing process. As it pertains to staffing of school, we have commenced the exercise of staffing school. We recognize that there are gaps based on our experience. The last 3 years or so has been particularly challenging for the education sector. And as we try to recover, we have to employ bold initiatives. And we're working with various agencies, various stakeholders, as we build the education product, as we recover stronger.
Okay, you mentioned the fact that you are engaging in some bold initiatives. What are some of those initiatives?
Okay, for instance, through grant funding from the Global Partnership in Education, there's a regional exercise that is being done that looks at curriculum assessment, curriculum development in the era of early childhood. We have received funding from the Global Partnership in Education, an OECS-wide initiative where we are looking at training for teachers. We are looking at minor infrastructural work. And also just to note, early childhood is getting great focus at this time. because we recognize that the formative years is a determinant of a child's output and a child's development. And with BNTF as well too, we are looking to do some work at a school in Fitzhugh, where we are doing some reconstruction, some refurbishing, and some extension of the school to accommodate all the childhood education. Currently we have about 15 or so early childhood centers that are government operated, and that has been expanding. Last year we saw the introduction of an early childhood center in Richland Park. We saw one in Bayabu as well too. And there are others that we have introduced as early childhood continues to get the focus and attention it deserves.
So these early childhood facilities, are they on their own, or are they part of school, a particular school or particular schools?
Yes, they are part of particular schools.
Okay.
Just to put it in context, Theresa, our early childhood subsector is delivered in terms of the service, is delivered mainly by the private sector. Well, let me put it this way, by privately operated institutions. Okay? Now, there are some 128 facilities in the country. Last check I checked. And what PS is saying, 15 of those are being operated by the state. But we have recognized, as he said, the importance of that early education in the development of our students, that we have taken a proactive approach to ensure that we have a wider coverage. Now, at the turn of the century, basically had 1 in 10 students, a young child being exposed to early childhood education. Today, the figure is more like 9 out of every 10. Now, what we are seeking to do is not just to provide support as we do. Right now, those institutions that have in excess of 15 students receive a monthly subvention from the government. But we are also operating from a policy level. What we are doing is basically strengthening the policy framework to ensure that we enhance the quality of the education and training that is offered at that level. Now, presently, we have a department that is dedicated towards early childhood education. Now, I call it a department because initially the goal was to establish a full-fledged unit. We have thus far only have a small department with 2 persons, but the intention as we expand our own involvement, we want to ensure that we have a unit in place to provide the kind of guidance and support to that sector of the education system, so that a lot of effort is being placed in developing the policy framework, reviewing certain standards, like just a number of activities, all aimed at enhancing the delivery of the early childhood training.
Okay, great.
So the focus on education quality,
Yes.
and education relevance. That's the focus.
Okay. I know off air we were talking a bit about the decentralization of the ministry's operations. Let's talk a little bit about that and how is this being done?
Well, again, to put things into context, we have basically embarked on a virtual education revolution. In the initial stages, since independence, we were primarily focused on doing what we call reform to the education system to fill some of the gaps that we inherited. Greater access at all levels, greater equity in terms of the distribution of resources and so on. Now, we are not at the stage where we can say that we have accomplished all of our goals with access, equity, and so on. But we do believe that we are at a stage where we have to move from just focusing on reform to a more strategic alignment of our education system with our broader developmental goals within the wider society. And as such, what we are seeking always to do is to ensure that the apex body, that agency that is charged with the delivery of our education system, is itself in a better position to enhance the service. And so when we look at the apex body, that is to say the Ministry of Education, we have recognized, and this is not anything original, we have been saying it all the time, but more so, the focus has become sharper. That look, what we need to do is to have some streamlining of the Ministry of Education, to put it in a position to better utilize its resources for bringing about the desired goals. And so, you know, we have taken some policy decisions already. We have also gone to Parliament and if you like, amended some of our education related bills, acts, to allow for the creation, for example, of a Ministry of Higher Education. Earlier we took the decision in streamlining to ensure that the organization of sports, if you like, be shifted to the Ministry of Sports, because when I say the organizing of sports, you have to recognize that the Ministry of Education organized in the past basically all of the inter-secondary school competitions, organized and financed them. And we felt that that was a strain on the Ministry of Education. And since we have a Ministry of Sports with the people to do that kind of work, we should concentrate on the curriculum aspect and let them do the organizing. In a similar way, we are looking at the decentralization of the operation of the Ministry of Education. And we intend to do it in a step-like manner, if you like. We are not going to rush out there in unknown territory, unknown waters, if you like. We are going to take deliberate decisions and action to ensure that we have the ministry in districts, in areas where officials from the ministry could be in a situation to work closer with the schools, hands-on, to help to enhance the quality of what is being offered in the respective institutions.
Okay, so we'll take our second break. When we come back, there are two specific questions that a listener or viewer wants to ask, and we also want to talk about the fact that there are two ministries of education, if you wish, now. So we're going to talk about that a little bit and what are the synergies that would exist. Back in a moment.
If you are working with the road cleaning program or receiving temporary financial assistance under the Volcanic Eruption Emergency Project, here's how you can withdraw money from the ATM using your bank card.
Insert your card into the machine. Enter your PIN. On the home screen, select Withdraw. Then select Check-in balance. Enter the amount you would like to withdraw. It must be a whole dollar amount and multiples of 20. For example, 20, 40, 60, etc. Ensure you enter the right amount, then select Correct. If you would like a receipt for the transaction, click Yes. Take your card, cash, and your receipt.
This message was brought to you by the Ministry of Finance, Economic Planning and Information Technology and the World Bank.
Welcome back. So I have a question. How about staffing for schools? School is meant to reopen on the 5th, yet schools have not received any info in that regard. So that's a question I have coming in. I don't know if the PS will take this one.
All right, so as indicated earlier, the staffing exercise has commenced. Persons have been identified. We are waiting now the decision of the Public Service Commission. The commission is scheduled to meet before the opening of school.
That's tomorrow or Friday?
Tomorrow. All persons will be informed so that schools can start in earnest.
I think we should be fair and say that this year we are a bit late because, I mean, persons would know of the situation in the country where some of our teachers who didn't meet the requirement for number 28 of 21, and hence were deemed to have abandoned their position. And since then, the measures have been relaxed, and we were hoping that teachers would have reapplied and hence fill some of these vacancies. The government itself took a decision to facilitate those teachers who wanted to return. And as such, the ministry had to, if you like, wait, because we repeatedly extended the deadline for persons to apply for the various vacancies. And hence, the last date identified as deadline was August 23rd. Yes, just last week. And I mean, you're talking about the filling of about 200 or so vacancies, which is a combination of a whole set of things.
Promotion resulting vacancies.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. As well as the vacancies created when the teachers did not meet the requirement for 28 of 21. So that we are late in that respect, but we are late because basically of that reason. Because I tell you, come the 16th of July, the Ministry of Education had already put together its proposal relative to the filling of these vacancies, which we were then to submit to Public Service Commission. But as I'm saying, all in the good spirit of getting those teachers who want to return back into the system, we had to wait.
So the Ministry of Education values experience. And the system has lost some outstanding professionals. We wanted to give them every conceivable opportunity to come back into the system, because we see that it would benefit our students. I can say with confidence that officials within the Ministry of Education, including Honorable Minister, we took no joy in seeing persons exiting the system.
Are you concerned that this is going to result in a deficiency in the quality of teaching across the system?
I mean, whenever you lose teachers, you would have a job, yes? But I make this point, and I make it over and over, that we are doing everything within our powers to ensure that that is not sustained, in the sense that we are filling those vacancies with trained persons also. They would not have, in some cases, the experience that some of those persons who exited had. But certainly we are making that effort to ensure that whatever deficiency, as you call it, arises is not sustaining. Yes? So we're making every effort in that respect.
Okay. Are there trained teachers in the system, well, not in the system, but already there, that can be tapped into? Is that resource available?
Yes, we have trained teachers, early childhood education, the professional training that you would get in primary teaching and in secondary teaching. We do have persons, as well as we have persons within the system also who are temporary. Well, let me not use temporary, non-permanent.
Yeah,
I think PS that might be the
relief.
right, but non-permanent, non-pensionable. So two categories: the what PS referred to as the relief are non-permanent, and we also have non-pensionable persons occupying non-pensionable position who are nevertheless trained. Yes, so when PS mentioned earlier that we were also filling vacancies from within. In other words, you promote persons to vacant position. Yes, so all of that is in the mix. And I mean, we are making the effort with the resources available to ensure that, as I'm saying, whatever challenges arise because of that situation, that these challenges are not sustained.
Okay. I think you may have answered this earlier on, but somebody is saying a temporary school is being constructed and should have been ready for opening. However, it's far from completion. Any estimated time as to when it will be ready? And I suspect that this might be
Mary Hutchinson.
Union Island. Yeah.
Mary Hutchinson.
Yeah, so
I don't want to give a date right now, because one of the things we have already identified that we are going to be visiting that site, because there are some issues, okay? And what we could assure is that we will have the facility up and running during this upcoming school year. But I don't want to give a precise date and when we think that work will be completed before we do a proper assessment from the level of the Ministry of Education.
okay. We spoke earlier about the fact now that there are two education ministries. What is the difference between the two, and what are the synergies that will exist among both ministries?
Okay, basically earlier this month we took a bill to the House of Assembly, the Parliament, to make some amendments to education-related acts. And the intention was to create a separate ministry for higher education. Now, There are a number of reasons, and PS could also speak to this issue too, because we discuss it and prepared our argument, which we submitted to Parliament in piloting the bill. Now, clearly, I mentioned earlier that we are at a state now where we are basically seeking to align our education system, the goals and so on, with our developmental goals, our strategies. And as such, we recognize, all the data would show that there's a great need for an expansion of tertiary education and training in our society. In fact, I would say this, the data from whatever source you get, whatever country, will show that countries who have exposed their citizens in greater numbers to higher education and training are in fact those societies that are doing better in today's world. As a small developing country, we too have come to recognize that if we are going to achieve the developmental targets that we are setting, if we are going to enhance, if you like, our economy, if we are going to build the sort of society that we want to build, then we have to expose more and more people to higher education and training. Presently, higher education within the Ministry of Education, a matter of fact, higher education in St. Vincent and the Grenadines,
It's a function of different entities.
Exactly. Yeah. Different entities do higher education. And sometimes, and I say it, I argue that basically the Ministry of Education basically only has nominal responsibility for higher education. It is being done by Service Commission,
University of the West Indies Open Campus,
University of the West Indies Open
SBGCC.
Campus, the Community College, Prime Minister's Office. We could go on. And what we were arguing, given the importance of higher education and training, and by the way, Teresa, when I say higher education, and that's why I keep saying higher education and training, we are not just speaking only of academic training, okay? A very important component is the STEM area, science, technology, engineering, mathematics, and our evolving technical and vocational education and training component. What we keep making the point, TVET is not only about training at the level of the secondary school. In fact, presently you have 5 levels of certification in TVET. And the first 2 are at the lower level. But if you check level 3 certification, it is equivalent to an associate degree. Level 4 certification, it is equivalent to a bachelor's, a first degree. And the level 5
professional certification.
Yeah, master's level. And we're talking here about CVQs. And these certifications, you can take them anywhere in the Caribbean and work. And more they're being recognized all over the world. So that we feel that, look, if we are going to get the best out of our education system, it is better that we separate the higher education function from that of the rest of the Ministry of Education. I mean, you still have at the level of the Ministry of Education, early childhood education, primary, secondary, TVET, adult and continuing education, and another area, special education. In addition to that, the ministry still has science and technology. We are also responsible for UNESCO. We are also responsible for ecclesiastical affairs.
And reconciliation.
And reconciliation.
Okay.
If you ask me, we still need more streamlining of the...
So stick a pin. When we come back, we'll finish that conversation. We'll also talk some more about some of the policy initiatives of the Ministry of Education. And just to let you know that someone is saying that in their opinion, it's a good move to have that ministry, because I think the Ministry of Education had too many responsibilities.
And
we'll be right
forget,
back.
Yeah, I was saying, don't forget, other countries have led the way.
Okay, we'll be right back.
If you are working with the road cleaning program or receiving temporary financial assistance under the Volcanic Eruption Emergency Project, here's how you can withdraw money from the ATM using your bank card.
Insert your card into the machine. Enter your PIN. On the home screen, select Withdrawal. Then select Check-in Balance. Enter the amount you would like to withdraw. It must be a whole dollar amount and multiples of 20. For example, 20, 40, 60, etc. Ensure you enter the right amount, then select Correct. If you would like a receipt for the transaction, click Yes. Take your card, cash, and your receipt.
This message was brought to you by the Ministry of Finance, Economic Planning and Information Technology, and the World Bank.
Welcome back. When we took our last break, we were talking about the advantages of having this new ministry and the synergies that will exist between both. PS, I don't know.
But just before PS comes in with the synergy, I was saying, this is not our original idea.
Vinci thing.
Vinci thing. You have had other countries, and a classic case is Malaysia, which in 2020 moved to, and people could Google it and read about, because there's a lot of debate, because persons are saying with the increased focus, with the need for higher education, can we continue to have in one ministry all these important things? And some naturally will suffer. And if you look at the trend and the predominance of the regular Ministry of Education, the attention at primary and secondary issues, you could see what would happen. But let the PS talk about some of these synergy.
Just to put things in context, the Ministry of Education currently manages 28 secondary schools, 66 primary schools, 15 early childhood centers. This is indeed a comprehensive portfolio.
And this, adult and continuing.
Adult and continuing education. So it was determined that there needed to be a distinction between primary and secondary and tertiary education, higher level education. And what is envisioned for higher education is an amalgamation of previously separated activities under one umbrella authority, which is the Office of the Prime Minister. So we are seeing now that TVET will be given greater focus as it pertains to higher level education. But TVET, just to ensure that there are synergies, it does not mean that the Ministry of Education would no more be responsible for technical vocational education. The Ministry of Education would be responsible for the technical institutes. But the function of higher level certification would reside at the community college and other entities. So that is what is envisioned for higher education. And of course, naturally, as education evolves, it takes on different forms. It is more distinct, less cumbersome, and as a policy direction of the state, with a greater focus on TVET, we can increase employment in the country. Persons can pursue their own businesses, and there are initiatives that the government has instituted to support persons with their businesses. Another focus as well too is that there is work being done for the instituting of another TVET institute in the leeward side of the island. That is just to demonstrate how we view TVET and the importance ascribed to TVET. So as a Ministry of Education, the Ministry of Education can work intimately with organizations such as the St. Vincent and Grenadines Community College, the University of Wednesday's Open Campus, to prepare students by giving them the foundation that would allow them to transition to the higher level.
Just to mention TVET, look, we have a project where we have identified 12 schools that are providing TVET services. P.S. The Kanawan Secondary School, the new Kanawan Secondary School was added to the list, right? And we are embarked on a program enhancing the TVET programs in those schools. But more than that, we have gone on, as he has mentioned, to show how important TVET is and why we have to up our game in that area. We have gone on to identify the establishment of a TVET center, a technical institute in Petitbodel. We are discussing also the establishment of one in the Marico Valley, because I mean, they have feeder schools right there. And not only that, Union Island, we have also identified Union Island as a home for a technical institute. The point I'm making, we have so many areas that we need to give additional focus. That I mean, if we don't have some level of streamlining of the ministry, you basically will be taking on a mama task where, what they told me you use, PS, that you basically have quantity.
Emphasize at the expense of quality.
And we can't afford that. We are at a stage of our development where we have to provide the basis for people to enhance their living circumstances. And all this petty thing about, look, this is not a ego trip, you know. It's a serious business about running a country and putting the country on a footing to allow it to expand, allow it to develop, allow its people to enhance their living circumstances.
Every great development initiative starts at level of concept. So we have conceptualized higher education, and we're putting the framework in place to accommodate higher education. And I am certain that we'll see increased activities at the level of higher education, would have more franchise agreements with institutions outside St. Vincent. We have a predominance of medicine schools in St. Vincent. We have students who are challenged in pursuing tertiary level education despite the numerous support that is provided by the state. if there's an institution locally that persons can go to, that's a viable option for someone who is disenfranchised materially.
And you mentioned that, but we should say that the medical schools are basically offshore institutions that do not provide a lot of opportunities for locals. But look, I mean, we just agreed to provide funding to 815, and we today at Cabinet we are talking about even expanding that number, giving persons tuition scholarship to allow them to pursue higher level education and training. And you see, Ministry of Education don't have that resource. And the point we have to keep making though is that this decision was taken to put our country in a better position, to provide greater opportunities for our young people and people in general to obtain higher education and training, which will redound to the benefit not only of the individual, of the country.
Well, Minister, I think that's a perfect note on which to end this week's edition of Roundtable Talk. So glad that you could join us this evening. Thank you, Minister King, and thank you, P.S. Burke. We'll see you again next week, Wednesday, same time. Good evening.